Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. It's the weekend, and everything you see here on the show is for sale. A little bit of home shopping. Take note, only through May 10th, the May event at the Watchbox means some of these watches are up to 40% off. Reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com, for your purchase and pricing questions about anything you see here. Names, reference numbers, and prices in the description below. But you have to act, or you're going to lose out on the May event. Let's start big. And by big, I mean a big piece, a very big piece. Though only 42 millimeters in stainless steel, the FP Journe sonnerie souveraine is a legend. Launched in 2006 and discontinued in 2019, this timepiece was rarely made, and I should mention it won the Aigle d'Or back in 2006, the grand prize, so to speak, at the Oscars of watchmaking. Now, the watch as you see it in my hand represents one of only 2 examples ever made with a black dial, as the standard one featured a white gold dial. Thus, you're looking at a watch with a total population of 2, and prior to the astronomique souveraine, this was the most complex FP Journe you could buy. The timepiece is relatively easy to wear, only 12.5 millimeters thick. You can see it is a stainless steel case, and this is to conduct the sound. It is a grand et petite sonnerie, and inside the case you have the ability to choose between petite, in which case you will strike the hour, and if you reach the quarter, it will strike the quarter only. But you could also go in grand mode, allowing you to hear the hour on the hour, but also the hour and the quarter on each quarter. Or you could place it in silent mode. Do you like minute repeaters? Well, it's that too. Unlike a standard minute repeater, which requires you to charge a strike barrel, this one actually runs off the mainspring, the same as the Grand Sonnerie. So if you want to hear the current time, you simply press the trigger, so the watch can act as a sonnerie or as a minute repeater, giving you the time on demand. Now, of course, you have the black polished strikers on the dial side. The watch is equipped with a matching steel deploying clasp. Flip it all over, and this is the caliber 1505. As you can see, it is an absolute maze of amazing parts. Stainless steel and rose gold. The components of the striking mechanism are all in satin finished steel, and note the beautifully beveled edges. And then you have the rose gold base movement. It has a 120-hour power reserve. It will operate as a grand sonnerie for 24 hours and then deactivate the sonnerie functions when the watch has 24 hours of running time remaining. Again, 5-day manual wind power reserve if you wear it exclusively as a watch rather than as a sonnerie. And it is an easy watch to wear, though it might appear immense absent context. You can see on my wrist 16 centimeters in circumference. It is a very comfortable one of 2 limited edition. And I have to say, in stainless steel, it has a good weight thanks to the rose gold movement, but it doesn't feel onerous or excessively heavy as some of these big pieces often do. The best of FP Journe, quite simply. Now, we'll court a little bit of controversy here with the most discussed watch of 2019, Audemars Piguet Code 1159 Chronograph. I think this watch gets a bit of a bum rap because it doesn't photograph well, but I'll let you make the decision. Ultimately, it's the details that make this watch appealing. As you can see, the lugs are evacuated. The case is octagonal in profile. It's actually faceted, and you can see that there are lovely hexagonal bolts fixing the bars that attach the strap to the case. Now, you'll also appreciate the attention to detail here, as we have those same hexagonal bolts fixing the buckle to the strap. Get a little bit closer to the dial and you can see that real money was spent here. It's not obvious when you look at the flat images online, but you can see that there is a chaptering outboard, a rehot, in the form of a tachymeter that gives considerable depth to this blue lacquered dial. All of the indices have a wonderful vaulted form to them, and that same rounded 3-dimensional form is seen on the hands. This is something that is characteristic of the best independent manufacturers and rarely seen on large brand products. Now, the watch is a chronograph, but what is often not mentioned is that it is a flyback chronograph, and it's remarkably slender. At under 12.5 millimeters thick, it's not the chunk it appears to be, absent sizing context. Caliber 4401, this is a column wheel vertical clutch 3-day power reserve, flyback chronograph, free sprung balance, full balance bridge. This is the next generation Audemars Piguet in-house chronograph caliber. You will be seeing it in Royal Oaks. It's a landmark movement for the brand and historically important. It launched on the code 1159. Now we'll take a look at this watch on the wrist. It's 41 millimeters, but it doesn't wear that large. Although it appears to have a strident and striking form, you can also see that it's relatively thin. You'll note the dihedral crystal, which is actually flared up on its edges and dipped at its center. Like I said, God is in the details with this one, or maybe the devil is in the details, depending on your view of the code 1159. What is unmistakable is the quality. It feels every dollar. It's 5-figure price. Oh, Tim, you just show me these 5- and 6-figure watches. Show me something I can buy. Your wish is my command. Right here we have the Sinn U1 SE, 44 millimeters in hard black over tegmented U-boat steel. This watch is the total package. 1,000 meters water resistant, a captive screw-fixed bezel, and a hard coating under, well, what could be described as unique circumstances, as Sinn now applies its hard black coating exclusively to its tegmented or carbon-diffused hardened steels. The idea is that the ultra-hard black coating on the outside will not crack like an eggshell due to soft metal underneath. So you have hard material underneath and even harder material on the top. And you can see how well this ages, as there are no scratches or scuffs on the conventional contact points of the watch. Now, the timepiece is remarkably well made, with a Sinn strap included, uncut. I should mention that there is a fold-out dive extension built into the tegment and hard black clasp. Let's take a quick look at the watch on my wrist, and you can see that the timepiece wears comfortably and easily. Substantial, beautiful, flat, fluid. I have to say, all things considered, Sinn probably gives you the best value in dive watches, and this particular watch has a wonderfully stark look with the ecru Fotina lume, and the timepiece is jet black aesthetic, and it is a satin black, not a gloss. Let's say you want to stick with the Swiss, but you want something that's American inflected. Well, you can still have your captive bezel fixed by screws and tougher than a snap-on bezel, but with many more innovations and distinctive traits on the 2014 500-piece 42mm stainless steel limited edition Ball Engineer Hydrocarbon HL Hunley 150th anniversary. This is a 200-meter dive watch that is dedicated to the original sinking of a surface vessel by a submarine in 1864 by the Confederate submarine Hunley of the USS Housatonic, a sloop of war in Charleston Harbor. Now, ultimately, the Hunley wound up killing more Confederate than Union sailors, but it was a historical breakthrough, and this watch is one of the smartest divers you will find at any price. Take a look at the attention to detail here. Ball watches probably surpass any others in the eyes-closed impression of price. They feel much more expensive than they are. You can see two bars, each fixed by a screw on each side, holding the bracelet to the case. The bracelet, as you can see, all removable links fixed by screws with two half links on each side of the clasp. The clasp feels strong enough to hold shut a bank vault, and then each individual end of the clasp has its own fold-out extension, a little bit like a Rolex Easy Link system. Comfortable, secure, redoubtable, overbuilt, certainly, but there's more to love. Ceramic insert on that captive screw-fixed bezel. You have a unique crown guard system that offers you Panerai-like full enclosure, but with a push-button release system. It's quite solid in person, and it surprised me with its integrity and precision. Now, the dial features tritium tracers, that is, glass capsules filled with tritium and a phosphorescent material, so it does not need to be activated by sunlight before taking the plunge or coming out at night. The bezel is fully lumed, all numerals and calibrations. There is a power reserve indicator, and then there's something on the case back called an amortizer. You can see that there is mention of an amortizer. What the hell is that? Well, we're not talking about our taxes here. We're talking about shock protection. Two levels of shock protection thanks to the amortizer system. There's a soft ring that encloses the movement, protecting it from shock, and then there is a mobile case back with a trigger that you align with the on logo. You see how there is a red triangle, and I've now aligned the red triangle with the on label on the case back. I have locked the winding rotor to render the watch ultimately shock resistant at a level that only a manual wind watch can boast. That's why there's a power reserve, so if you're using it in manual wind mode, you know how much of the 42-hour power reserve remains. A very cool 500-piece limited edition. All right, bring back the expensive stuff. Here we have a watch that is 1 of 10 with the labyrinth dial. This is the FP Journe Tourbillon souveraine. 10 pieces, 40 millimeters in platinum. The dial is hand-engraved rose gold with what is known as the labyrinth pattern, large overlapping arcs, in contrast to the Régence circulaire, which is the other hand-engraved dial that FP Journe periodically offers. Note the tourbillon. I'll get as close as I can without corrupting the focus, but it has a filigree wire-style carriage, a black-polished, continuously rounded half-bridge. This is a rare FP Journe that includes an overcoil hairspring. It's free-sprung with 6-position adjustment, and it receives its energy through a remontoire d'égalité, a constant force device that also acts as the basis for the jumping second complication. As you can see, the power reserve is like a chronometer, a marine chronometer specifically, so it moves backwards. It was important to wind the marine chronometer every 24 hours on the 24th hour, so it was more important to know how many hours since winding. So on a marine chronometer style power reserve, 0 means 0 hours since winding. You can see the movement is 18 karat rose gold, very solid, with a gold dial, a gold movement, and a platinum case. As you can see, it features the linear titanium spring and a second pawl system that acts as the buffer between the mainspring and the escapement, ensuring that for the first 30 hours of power reserve, the watch runs with equal amplitude, so there's no loss of amplitude. That is the point of the remontoire d'égalité. Throw it on the wrist. Very comfortable. The timepiece is flat and flush, 10.5 millimeters thick, 48.1 millimeters lug to lug, and you're going to see the shape of the lugs makes this watch highly wearable even on a smaller wrist. I would recommend it for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. 10 pieces. Now this, likewise, is a limited series of 10 pieces, but this is an uncommon H. Moser & C. Endeavour concept, a timepiece that represents 38.8 millimeters of pale rose gold and an explosive jet black guilloche cut, no date, no logo, no print dial. Most Moser concept watches feature an unusual dial configuration, and that's exactly what we have here. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can get a better sense of the watch on my wrist. Again, 38.8 millimeters and very flat. You can see the shape of the lugs really helps the fit, just like on the Journe. The timepiece is close coupled to the wrist and very comfortable. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13 centimeters circumference, and when we flip things over, we find that the other integrated manufacturer of Schaffhausen has plenty of interesting tech and spec to offer us. The movement, manual wind, beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour with a 72-hour power reserve and a hidden case-back power reserve indicator. Now, I should mention that the timepiece includes a 6-position adjustment, which, as with the FP Journe Tourbillon, is one more than the chronometer standard, so I'm very impressed by that level of exacting adjustment. Most manufacturers will hide all the error in the untested position and test in only 5. Now we have a balance that's free-sprung with a full bridge, so it's very shock resistant. There's an overcoil hairspring to help it keep excellent time in all of those 6 positions, and then there's a 14 karat gold low-friction escapement. The balance, the hairspring, and the escapement all made in-house. And by the way, they lift out as a unit for rapid servicing when the watch goes back to Schaffhausen. You'll note the double-crested Côte de Genève across the bridges, a very special time-only watch. That said, it is not my favorite Moser on today's show. This is the H. Moser & C. Endeavour Perpetual Calendar Black Edition, 40.8 millimeters in blackened titanium. The timepiece is feather light and boasts an impressive apple green fumé or sunburst gradient fade dial. Let's get a little bit closer and take a look at what you get here. It is a perpetual calendar and a most discreet one, as it features a 7-day power reserve indicator, an oversized date, and a system that allows you to adjust the perpetual calendar forward or backwards. Now note, as I adjust, the index at the center underneath the hands points to one of the 12 hours, and it can move forward or backwards. This is a bidirectionally adjustable perpetual calendar. Also note the date window, the 2 overlapping discs, allowing a truly oversized date to be featured without a watch of 45 millimeters, which would be required if all of those numbers were placed on one date disc. Now you can also see I'm able to jump forward or backwards. The 12 hours represent the 12 months, so right now, for example, I am looking at July 29th. Now I am looking at August 1st. It's that simple. The timepiece, which includes a complication designed for Moser by AHCI revolutionary Andreas Streller. The Streller system, very discreet. He's a master of hidden complications, which is why you can see the leap year cycle indicator is mounted on the case back. Now here we have 7 days of power reserve, 2 mainspring barrels with jewels set in golden screw-fixed chaton a la pocket watches, and although it's rated 7, it'll run for 9. Swiss-German, of course, German-Swiss, I should say, under-promising and over-delivering. You have that same slow beat balance with the hairspring, overcoil, 6-position adjustment, the gold escapement, and the platform escapement and balance assembly that lifts out as a whole. You'll also note that there is remarkable contouring to this watch, as the bezel is broader at its lower end than it is in profile. There's also a curvature and a camber to the caseback and the caseback sapphire, with lovely scalloped and black polished flanks to the lugs. It is a graceful watch that wears fairly weightless on the wrist. Close your eyes, you'll forget it's there. Open your eyes, you can't miss it. A spectacular and rare piece from a brand that only makes about 1,500 watches a year. We're big Moser fans here at the Watch Box, and this is one of my favorites. This might be the first appearance of a Harry Winston watch on this show in quite a few months, maybe even over a year. But what you're looking at right here is the premier Excenter by retrograde perpetual calendar with GMT. You can see there's a stub hand in yellow that represents a second time zone. Truth be told, it's not a GMT so much as it is a dual time watch. The watch features an independent pusher, so you can make adjustments quickly, and if you wish, you can even hide that second time zone when you do not need it underneath the local hour hand. Let's jump all the way around one more time. And the timepiece is a perpetual calendar with by retrograde. You'll note there's a retrograding date and a retrograding month. You have your leap year cycle indicator, and you have a moon phase, a lovely vertical satin finish dial in a 41mm white gold case with distinctive hinge lugs, full deploying clasp, and matching white gold. I should mention the watch is relatively thin in profile at under 12.5mm, and you can see the arch design that's characteristic of Harry Winston watches, inspired by the New York flagship headquarters. Turn it all over, and that New York-inspired aesthetic gives way to La Chaux de Fonds and Girard-Perregaux. This is a Girard-Perregaux 3000 series automatic movement, ultra-thin, artisanally crafted, very accurate, 46-hour power reserve automatic winding. You get a combination of the perpetual calendar system and the GMT with a Girard-Perregaux base movement. The module is Harry Winston's own, and as you can see, the watch wears distinctively on the wrist, not exactly overpowering in its size. It's broad and impressive without being unwieldy. It's even pretty flat. You can see it'll fit underneath a cuff. Thanks to the hinge lugs, the case is broad, but it wears comfortably. It's about 50mm from side to side across the wrist. Now we'll jump back to Journe for a minute, and we will jump back to a Journe Jump Hour Jump Minute. Launched in 2010 in 68 pieces, this is the Rose Gold Vagabondage II. The coolest feature of this watch is the asymmetrical bridge that bears the readouts, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. At first glance, the watch appears to be fairly symmetrical, but then you realize that from side to side, that bridge is anything but symmetrical. There's a smoked sapphire over the discs that represent the hours and the minutes. You can see there's a power reserve indicator up at 12 o'clock. The watch has a 28-hour power reserve, so you're going to want to pay attention to that and wind this watch on a daily basis. Now you can see there is perlage on the base plate, and the rose gold movement is visible through the case front. One of the distinctive features of the Vagabondage series, beside the tonneau case, is the absence of any branding on the dial side. I'll shut up for a minute because here comes the jump, and I know you're waiting for that. There it is. The timepiece, easy to wear, only about 45mm lug to lug and just over 8mm thick, as you can see on the reverse side. Just as the case is made of rose gold, so too is the movement itself. Shaped and sized, and as you can see, caliber 1509 represents the latest in a series that began with a movement FP Journe originally designed for a Cartier tonneau case, and that watch never came to pass, so he bought the movement back and eventually issued it in the original Vagabondage. He didn't put his name or his branding on the dial because the original movement was not accurate enough to suit his tastes. Well, subsequent V2 and V3 movements have rectified that shortcoming, but he's kept up the previous practice of placing no branding on the dial side. A very special watch, and one of the few Journe watches that comes with a deploying clasp as standard. Sometimes it can be said that we overdo the Journe here at Watchbox, and I'm not going to disagree. So the antidote to the common boutique watch is going to be something like a Chopard L.U Chopard Lunar One. Launched back in 2005, a manufacturer movement that is both Geneva hallmark and a COSC chronometer. This limited edition, and as you can see, it is a individually numbered edition of 250. This limited edition 40.5mm rose gold chronometer perpetual calendar is something special. Real rose lathe guilloche dial with a grand dot, a remarkable moon that not only changes phase but actually orbits around the sub-register at 6 o'clock. You have stylized indices and Roman numerals. The watch is loomed and thus visible in the dark. You can see there is a generous rose gold deployant clasp, double deployant with triggers, and then we flip things over and you can see a descendant of the original Michel Parmigiani designed caliber 196. This is made by Chopard in its Geneva workshops and therefore it can bear the Poinçon de Genève. 5-position adjusted, it's a COSC chronometer and with a micro rotor winding system. It has a power reserve over 70 hours. It is the full package, COSC and Geneva hallmark. Beautifully finished to the extent that it is Geneva hallmark, but beyond that, it is so obviously above average that you can enjoy its broad bevels, its rich Côte de Genève, its deep engine turning, and the black polished components without a loop. Now, when you throw this watch on the wrist, it is comfortable to wear. It does have stop seconds, which for some reason is a rarity among ultra haute de gamme timepieces. And as you can see, it's about 50mm across the wrist, which means it is a substantial dress watch, but nevertheless, it wears easily and comfortably. Handsome and flat, it easily slides underneath the cuff. If you want a true manufacturer product that simply exhausts superlatives, this is a way to do it with a brand that will always be around to service your timepiece, but it gives you that independent cool that so many larger companies are unable to harness. A real special watch and one that offers a ton of value for money. It's rare that I wait till 20 minutes in to get to a Rolex, but that's exactly what we have right here, and this is one of my favorites. This is the Rolex Date. It is the 118238, so this is a rubellite dial diamond set. So you can see that lovely rubellite texturing. It's like a marbled ruby tone, and then you have the yellow gold set individual diamonds, brilliant cut and baguette. This is the timepiece that represents a later evolution of the double quick set Date, and you can see it features a nicely matching yellow gold disc for the date and the day. Double quickset era, post 2000, so you know exactly what we're dealing with here. 36mm and only 12.2mm thick. It's an easy watch to wear on any wrist. 43mm lug to lug, 47mm end link to end link across the wrist. This is a watch that I could recommend for a wrist as small as 13 centimeters circumference. So if you want just a visual brass knuckle that represents power, prestige, and heritage. If you want a watch that embodies the luxe image of Rolex more than any other, it's gonna be a yellow gold Date. And with this dial, you're gonna ensure that no one else at the Power Pool in Miami or along the Riviera has the same version of the Date that you do. Very comfortable with an all solid link Super President bracelet, solid center links, solid end links, and a lift lock clasp with a beacon hook. So when this one closes, it closes resolutely. You must unlock it to open it. It feels as expensive as it is. That said, the GMT has been on a run since 2013 and the arrival of the Batman, or the black and blue. There has been a revived interest in the original Rolex pilot's watch, and while Pan Am pilots would have worn the first examples in 1954, this example can be on your wrist. As you can see, we're dealing with a 5-digit 16710, 40mm in steel, but a later example with the all-black bezel that visually extends the dial and offers a little bit more visual harmony than the split coloration. We are looking at a D-series watch, so you can see we have solid lugs and solid end links, and the timepiece wears and fits like a pre-super case GMT, which is to say it's a bit more elegant and surprisingly thin at only 12mm thick. So on the wrist, thanks to the broad solid end links, it has an impressive stance and a solid feel. You still have hollow center links, and of course you still have a stamped clasp, but this is an interesting Rolex that represents a transition from the old way the GMT was built to the current GMTs in the super case with the solid link bracelets. A lovely piece and much loved. This is powered by the 3185 dual time caliber, so you have that COSC chronometer certification, 100 meters of water resistance, a 12-hour and a 24-hour time zone. which is wonderful, but my heart always comes back to the Daytona. With the exception of the Milgauss Z Blue, which I class almost outside the canon of Rolex, this is my favorite Rolex model line, the Daytona. I'm a motorsports fan, and in particular, I love the 24 Hours of Daytona, the long night of winter in northern Florida, and of course the timepiece you see right here, named after the Speedway itself, as the original Rolex Daytona in 1963 was named the Rolex Le Mans, and that rapidly changed as Rolex sought to capitalize first on the use of Rolex watches at the Daytona Beach Flying Mile during the 1950s, and later on the use of Rolex watches timing the motorsports events at the new Speedway, which was built alongside the beach to accommodate year-round motorsports and ever higher speeds. 40 millimeters in diameter by 12.2 millimeters thick. Of course, this is a scrambled series, late steel case and steel bezel model. 3-day power reserve, chronometer certified, vertical clutch, column wheel, and manufacturer movement. It's the combination of the steel bezel and the steel case that sets this apart from the current 116-500 LN, and if I had to pick between the two, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I'd go with steel and steel. There's absolutely no compromises. You get the latest version of the clasp, the latest version of the beak and hook locking system, and of course we've got the EasyLink 5mm tool-free adjustment built into the clasp with a few anchoring divots inside the clasp if you want to fine-tune using a strap tool. A very special watch and a lovely scrambled series, one of the latest of the steel models prior to their discontinuation at the end of 2015. Okay, but let's say you don't have Rolex Daytona money. You still want to get a luxury watch, Swiss-built and serviceable indefinitely. Consider the 2019 Oris Divers 65 Chronograph. Bronze bezel, stainless steel case, 43 millimeters in diameter, with one of the most dramatically domed and cambered sapphire crystals you will ever encounter. 42-hour power reserve with a Sellita SW510. Pardon me, Oris claims 48 hours power reserve. In general, 7750 derivatives are 42, but Oris claims 48, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt. You get a twin register chronograph, and take note, no date dial, nice, clean, balanced, and the sapphire gives you the feel of a vintage plexiglass, as the Fotina, which is nicely color keyed to the rose gold plated hands, gives you a handsome consonance of color on that glossy dial. Now on the wrist, the timepiece wears easily. It's a 43, so consider it a little bit like a Royal Oak Offshore 42. It's broad across the wrist at 42 millimeters, and it is thick, but most of that is in the crystal, so the timepiece will slip underneath a jacket cuff. Comfortable, 100 meters water resistant, unidirectional rotating bezel. This is a timepiece that begs for one of our real-time loom shots. Here we go. And we're back with the Oris Divers 65. As you can see, the watch will find out if my camera's able to. There it is. Good job. You can see the watch features a remarkable amount of luminescent material, as you can actually see the chronograph register 4 minutes and the constant second plowing along. Now you'll note there's a different coloration to the loom on the hands as well as the bezel that allows you to more readily distinguish them if you are using the watch for diving or simply viewing it at night. Let's say 43 doesn't float your boat, or since it's a dive watch, sink your submarine. 40 millimeters is just what the doctor ordered. Same combination of stainless steel with bronze bezel. Here we have the Oris Divers 65 steel bronze with British racing green dial. Lovely ecru Fotina. In this case, it works well with the bronze and the rose gold plated hands and indices. Throw it on the wrist. It features a vintage inspired tropic style strap, and it is very comfortable. Now we're talking a watch anyone can get along with. If you have ultra haute de gamme timepieces and you want something that could be your daily driver and keep your conscience clear without stooping to the likes of Timex Ironman, toy watches, or G-Shock, the bottom line is you can get an indefinitely serviceable lifetime product from Oris, wear it every day, send it in for service and repairs when necessary, and not slum it when you're not wearing your JLC Duomet or your Lanka Dotograph. This is a true luxury class timepiece that gives you a lot of versatility and light duty diving capability. I'll let you hear the 120 click bezel because that matters with dive watches. It's sharp, it's crisp, it's mechanical, it satisfies. Caseback, not much to see. Same on the chronograph. It's a solid caseback with the Oris shield. This is a timepiece that offers a lot of value and a lot of fun for the money. Our second Girard-Perregaux powered opus of the show is the more interesting of the two. Don't get me wrong, I like the GMT Perpetual from Harry, but this Girard-Perregaux Constant Escapement LM exhausts superlatives. Take a quick look at the Constant Force Escapement. It is basically two wheels driven by the twin mainspring barrels with a 6-day power reserve. Those two wheels are snapping a remarkably thin, and I mean thinner than a human hair, elastic band of silicon. It's anchored at both sides, and then there is a rocker between. And you can see as the wheels push that elastic band of silicon, it snaps. And it's the snap of the silicon, not the push of the wheel, that impulses the balance. And since it takes a certain constant amount of energy to snap the silicon band and thus activate the lever indexing the balance, the same amount of force always impulses the balance. And that elastic component impulsing the balance with energy separate from the mainspring, that is the buffer between the escapement and the mainspring barrels, which is why the Constant Escapement LM delivers constant force and, as a result, constant amplitude. And that is the ultimate goal of every watchmaker. Fine adjustment, consistency, tunability, yes, but constant amplitude. Everything else is variable that can be isolated as long as you have constant amplitude. Now, the watch has a whole lot more than that. This is the second generation of the watch, which I should mention is our second Aiguille d'Or GPHG luminary of the show. In 2006, the GPHG Aiguille d'Or winner was the Grande Sonnerie from FP Journe, and in 2013 it was the Constant Escapement LM, but that watch was a 48mm. This is the 46, the second generation, mechanically identical. It's a more wearable watch, and you can see the lugs are sharply downturned. This is a grade 5 titanium case, so it resists scratching as well as steel, but it gives you the feather lightness of titanium, making this immense watch comfortable. Now, as you turn the case over, you can see there's quite a bit of thoughtful reference to Girard-Perregaux history. I'm going to do my best here to show you. You can see that the train leading down to the balance actually features the same architecture as the bridge series. We have underneath the balance a golden bridge style architecture, the caliber 9100 powered by the twin mainspring barrels, and you can see a beautiful combination of gray, silver, violet, and black. It's a handsomely hand-finished movement that is as attractive as it is intellectually appealing, and you'll note the vintage pocket watch inspired ratchet style click fixing the two barrels up at 12 o'clock. This is a supremely special watch and one of the most important technological innovations of the modern era. Keep in mind that this system was originally pioneered by Rolex in the late 90s before the engineer Nicolas Dehaene ultimately left, Rolex having failed to complete the patent. He joined Girard-Perregaux and was able to realize the idea using the flexibility, pun intended, afforded by silicon. Rolex tried to do it with metal. This was the winning solution. Annual calendars. Invented by Patek Philippe in 1996, if you're going to buy an annual calendar, getting one from Patek is a way to stay true to the original. And this is probably the most appealing annual calendar Patek has launched in the last 20 years. As you can see, a timepiece featuring a sector dial with several different grades of silver, all calibrations numerals, including the day, the month, and the date disc printed in blue. This is a handsome, beautiful watch with down the middle bilateral symmetry about it, and my favorite feature of the dial is not the blue accents, it's not the sector layout, it is the vaulted Patek Philippe Genève logo up at the top, something rarely seen. Now, aperture style calendars are rare in Patek history and usually placed on flagship complications from the brand. This, in many ways, was the most attractive version of the 5396. Launched in 2005, Patek got it right out of the gate. 38.5mm in white gold. This is an early example with the Geneva hallmark on the movement. Those were only made from 2005 through 2009, and this is the most sought version, the white gold sector dial 5396G. Easy to wear, comfortable, flat flush, under 12mm thick. It's perfect for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Being an annual calendar, it only needs to be adjusted, that's right, annually once during the jump from February to March, so every other irregular length month this watch can handle. Gyromax balance, 28.8 beat rate, unidirectional winding, 5-position adjustment, and as you can see, the Poinçon de Genève on the terminal end of the train bridge. Very beautifully finished, handsome enough that you don't necessarily need a loop to appreciate it, but if you buy a watch of this caliber from a brand like Patek, you really should invest in a quality loop. Want something a little bit more, I don't know, how shall we say, spectacular? Up the ante and up the case size. Patek Philippe 5070R, 42 millimeters in rose gold. This is a timepiece that was made from, I believe, 2002 to 2006, with about 250 made per year in the rose gold. So you're looking at a rarity right off the bat. Originally launched at Basel 1998, the 5070 was a 42 millimeter giant for its time, based on prototypes. I want to say the prototypes were the 2512 references in the Patek Philippe Museum, and those were even larger, 46 millimeters, I believe. So you can see where the design of the bezel, which is almost like a flat plane pagoda, stepped up to the sapphire, and then you have a compound calibration outboard that is a wonderful trick of the eye designed to disguise the disparity between the Lamagna-based movement and the case itself. The dial is not simple silver. It is a sort of dark, intense silver. Think Avis silver on an Audi RS or Alubeam silver on a Mercedes AMG. Lovely rose gold applique. Let's wind this one up, because what is a chronograph without a little bit of chrono action? A very special piece. As you can see, vintage-inspired rectangular pushers, and when you turn it all over, that famed CH2770 from Patek Philippe, based on the Lamagna 2310. In another form, this movement went to the moon as the Omega 321. Patek makes many changes, adding a free-sprung balance rather than the conventional mobile stud index. Power reserve goes from 48 hours to 65 hours, 5-position adjustment rather than unadjusted, overcoil hairspring rather than flat hairspring, and Poinçon de Genève Geneva hallmark levels of finish. Now you can see that there is a lateral clutch and there is a column wheel, which in traditional Geneva fashion is capped. Satin finish on the steel levers, beaks, horns, and reset hammers of the chronograph, and then Côte de Genève across the bridges. You can see there's engine turning on the base plate with all screw heads black polished, and every edge, as you can see, glowing, mirrored with a rounded bevel, finished off with a piece of switchwood rather than a machined bevel. This is all handcrafted and very old school. Throw it on the wrist. I happen to love the 5070. I love it far more than the 5170. A 5170p can pull at my heart, but virtually every 5070 represents to me the ultimate Patek Philippe chronograph, and as all of them are scarce and the Lamagna movement now discontinued, they're not making any more, and it becomes more special by the day. By the way, take a quick look if you're wondering, has this one been sympathetically owned and sympathetically, if ever, refinished? Take a look at the sharpness of the bevels on the edges of the lugs. They are deep, sharp, and clearly defined. This is the first thing that goes when these things get refinished, and these look as good as the day they left Geneva. Okay, the big piece. When I open with a Grande Sonnerie, you may wonder, how the hell am I going to finish this thing? I'm going to finish with what is truly my favorite Patek. I'm partial to the 5235G regulator, but the 5207P, launched at Baselworld in 2008, simply overwhelms. 41 millimeters in platinum with a salmon sunburst dial, aperture, instantaneous jump perpetual calendar. That's right, everything will jump in the split second at the turn of midnight. That's tough to do. Tourbillon regulator, minute repeater, and take a look at the case flanks, freehand evacuated and engraved. They are then chiseled within the recesses of the engravings, and that on all four corners. You'll even note that the same treatment has been lavished on the trigger for the repeater slide. The bezel features a concave profile to visually pair the mass of the watch. As ever, a brilliant cut diamond between the lugs down at 6 o'clock. Turn it all over. My God, that movement. I mean, that movement. 8 interior angles inside the black polished lower tourbillon bridge alone. You'll note the tourbillon featuring a black polished carriage. That third wheel with octopus-like spokes takes 10 hours to hand finish by itself. Black polished strikers, everything executed to the highest standard. No fewer than 9 interior angles that I count, and I might be missing some. This is a special watch. Let's fire it up so you can see some tourbillon action, and then we'll activate the repeater for a big finish. Roll it forward until the watch is beaten away at 21.6. By the way, adjustment, 5 positions, overcoil hairspring, gyromax free sprung, and 1 minute tourbillon period. The tourbillon is on the reverse side of Patek Philippe watches to eliminate UV degradation of the lubricants used. That is the reason. Let's do my absolute best here to change the time to 12:59, and I'm going to do my best to hit 12:59, but I'm going to undershoot rather than overshoot, because undershooting means you're still going to get a hell of a show. Overshooting means you're going to hear nothing. Patek Philippe built perhaps 8 to a dozen of these per year, and the model is discontinued as you see it here. The ultimate Patek Philippe complication with beautifully tapered lugs, a watch that is as gorgeous as it is technically sophisticated. I can recommend it even for 14-centimeter circumference wrists, and I wish I could never take it off my own. Guys, thank you so much. Remember, the May event is underway, and watches such as these are up to 40% off, but only until the 10th. Act now and contact me directly. If you have questions about any of these watches, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Prices, questions, photos, additional details, and sales support. Time out, Tim out. Thank you so much for logging on.